Hello out there, Desmoid community. I'm Dr. Breelyn Wilky from the University of Colorado, and I'm a medical oncologist that specializes in the care and clinical research for sarcomas and desmoid tumors. So my goal today is to give you some information about clinical trials. Clinical trials are incredibly important for patients with rare diseases, particularly for diseases that have no standard treatments, for patients who have progressed on all standard treatments, or for those that are incurable with standard treatments. And so there's a ton of research today being done in cancer care, and we've gotten better than ever at getting the most promising new treatments from the laboratory into the clinic at really record pace. However, with any new treatment, there are potential risks to consider before you decide to participate in a clinical trial. And so over the next few minutes, we will discuss the different types of clinical trials out there and some of the facts that you should know and questions you should ask before agreeing to participate in a clinical trial. Overall, the point of a clinical trial is to study a new drug or a new combination of drugs for a particular disease. Depending on what phase of study that the drug is in, it could be a phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, or phase 4. There are unknowns. So the most important document to explain a clinical trial is called the informed consent document. In an informed consent, it is explained to you in writing and in layman's terms what the clinical trial is testing, what is known about the study based on previous testing either in the laboratory or in people, what the potential benefits might be, and also what the potential risks might be. You then have the choice of whether you want to accept these unknown risks and potential benefits to be part of the study. Phase 1 trials are often using new drugs that have never been tested in people before, or combinations where the safety of putting 2 or more drugs together is being tested at particular doses or schedules. For first-in-human studies, laboratory research has been done in animal models like mice or monkeys, and this has to have shown evidence of potential benefit in a particular cancer type. Additionally, there has to be information from those laboratory studies in animals about the potential side effects or long-term toxicity. And so all of this information is submitted to the Food and Drug Administration, or the FDA, before a clinical trial can be open for people. This information is reviewed before permission to start a study is granted. But because mice aren't people, sometimes the side effects are different in humans than they were in the animal models, or the drug may not be as effective in humans as it was in mice. And so the goal of most phase 1 trials is really to study the safety and the dosing in patients. These are usually very small studies, less than 20 or 30 patients, and they are not designed to understand whether the drug is going to work against the cancer. That being said, many of these early studies are being designed on cutting-edge science with a real rationale, and so we actually hope to see patients that might benefit. For example, if a new drug is designed to block protein A, and science has shown that protein A is all over patients with desmoid tumors, then that may be a really smart trial to consider participating in, particularly if you don't have other treatment options. So key questions to ask for a phase 1 study are about what kind of laboratory research has been performed, what's the science that explains the potential benefit, what kind of side effects were being seen in mice, how many patients have already been enrolled on the study, are you coming in at the lower doses or the higher doses? All of these things together will help you make an informed decision about whether a phase 1 trial is right for you. And it's important to note that there are no sugar pills or placebos generally used in phase 1 studies. After a dose and schedule has been selected based on the phase 1, the next step is a phase 2 study. So these are usually bigger studies, ranging from a few dozen to a couple hundred patients. The goals of phase 2 are to determine if there is evidence of benefit in patients treated with the drug or combination at the selected dose from the phase 1 study. While the informed consent document, especially for a phase 2, will list and explain the safety as it's known, it's important to remember that that safety data may only be based on a few patients from the phase 1 trial. That's why phase 2 studies are also going to capture additional safety data, and if there are new side effects that come up, particularly if they tend to be fairly rare, they may be discovered along the way, even in a phase 2. And so if that happens, sometimes the informed consent document will be edited along the way, and you may be reconsented so that we are sure that you're up to date on the most recent safety information. If the drug goes on to look promising in phase 2, usually the next step is a phase 3 trial, and this is where the study drug is being compared to a standard treatment or potentially a placebo. This is to determine whether or not the new drug is better or comparable to a standard treatment, if one exists, and whether it should be approved by the Food and Drug Administration. If it's approved, that means that your doctor can write a prescription for it, and generally most insurance companies are going to cover it. So a phase 3 is usually a few hundred patients or more. Preliminary safety and evidence of activity of the drug is going to be seen in phase 1 and 2 before a phase 3 happens, but again, super rare side effects may emerge along the way, even in a phase 3 study. In fact, even after a drug is approved and begins being prescribed for patients, it may take years to fully understand the long-term side effects. For example, we used to use a drug called Vioxx to treat arthritis, and it was really, really good at working to control arthritis, but it was only after years that the drug was approved where observation and ongoing reports showed that people taking Vioxx had an increased risk of heart attacks. These post-approval studies that monitor for potential side effects and long-term issues are called phase 4 studies. So as you can see, it's not straightforward to study new drugs. Our patients with cancers and desmoids want and need access to new drugs that may be helpful. And so there's a push by the FDA to get potentially helpful drugs to patients as soon as possible. This has led to something called an accelerated approval, where the drug may be approved after only a phase 2 study with really good data, or a conditional approval where it's available while a phase 3 study that's confirming the benefit is going on. Also, there are compassionate use programs where your doctor can apply to the company to get you the drug for free, or the right to try laws, which allow patients to have access to drugs that do look promising but are not yet available. But this is a setup for surprise side effects to come out because the drugs have not been used in very many people, yet they're being made available. And so the other problem is that drugs that looked effective in phase 2, leading to that accelerated approval, can sometimes turn out to not be effective once you get into a bigger study. And this is exactly what happened with a drug called olaratumab that was combined with chemotherapy for patients with sarcomas. The drug was conditionally approved in phase 2, but failed to hold up in phase 3. And so many patients were treated with these drugs. So that's clearly not ideal. So overall, it's important that you understand the risks and the potential unknowns before you begin participating in a clinical trial or a compassionate use program. Now, the risks of your cancer may far outweigh the unknown risks that come along with being in a trial, but this is a decision that you and your doctor need to make together. Read the consent forms. Never be afraid to ask questions about things you don't understand. Thank you, and I hope this was helpful. Have a great day.